Generation Lost was broadcasted live as an interactive horror show where the audience made choices guiding the protagonist, our hero, through seemingly innocent tasks. But as the show progressed, the truth was slowly revealed, changing the overall feel of Gen Lost from a comedy to a horror. In this video, I'm going to be talking about everything that makes Gen Lost the best piece of media the internet has seen in years. From the incredible writing to the insane amount of effort put into the project as a whole. I've not been this invested and entertained by something before, and I cannot wait to see more from Rambo and the Generation Lost team. Getting right into it, I'm going to start with something that stuck out to me immensely. The acting. Taking into consideration most members of the cast had little to no experience with acting, they did an incredible job making Generation Lost feel so insanely real. From line delivery,
What the fuck is this place?
to facial expressions, acting was flawless, even with a couple things going wrong, such as Charlie constantly getting stuck to things and Germa breaking the door. They managed to improvise each situation perfectly, and the show went on without a pause. I was impressed with the talent on show throughout the entire broadcast, but there were a few moments that stuck out to me most, and those were moments of realisation. Two that intrigued me a lot personally were when Rambo gets his first look at the mall and when Charlie finds out the cabin, his home, was just a set. When Rambo is finally able to see, and his perception is supposedly no longer being altered, he instantly makes eye contact with the camera, with us. You feel the tension immediately, and the entire narrative of the show flips. He watches us for a brief moment before looking past us and into the distance. As he walks out, it's revealed to him that he's in some sort of abandoned mall, but why? How? He would still have to go through so much more to find out. Rambo portrayed that sense of fear and confusion so well. I feel it's also important to note that in this scene, Rambo's character swears for the first time. It's the first line with some aggression behind it, and I think it just told the audience how much the character was about to change. This scene is so powerful. Not only is it our first look at the incredible location of the show, but it was the moment the audience truly thought Rambo was free, only for the finale to leave us in total and utter shock. This moment of realisation is one of the most important moments in the whole show. When Rambo and Charlie first step into the cabin set's location, and the camera slowly pans to Charlie, the audio fades out and the music changes. Charlie appears drained and broken. The desperation for this all to be some sick joke filling his eyes. He seems dazed, lost. Charlie's face in this scene absolutely broke me. The fact he found out his whole life was a lie after growing up in this cabin, just moments before he meets his fate, is devastating. An honourable moment of realisation is when Sneak is finally able to see the reality of what's going on around him. Going off what we could see, it's assumed he saw Charlie on the hospital bed, bleeding out, begging for help, while everyone else sits idly by acting like nothing's wrong. It's also possible he might have seen something else in the room, but we'll get onto our little friend Frank in due time. When Sneak realises what's going on around him, he doesn't freak out and scream. He simply asks the puzzler if he can use the bathroom. Germa reluctantly allows him, but as soon as Sneak gets round the corner, he can be seen sprinting away. This means Sneak will have seen the facility. He'll have seen the mall. This could have been one of the things that got Germa in trouble with Showfall. After a few minutes, Sneak is dragged back, kicking and screaming as a Showfall mask is placed on his head. The mask is taken off, Sneak seems calm, drained. He honestly looks like a child that's just been told off by their favourite teacher. He looks distraught. While all this is happening, the rest of the cast freeze, almost as if Showfall had turned them off for a brief second, so that they wouldn't see what was going on. This confuses me a bit because it's the first time Austin, Nikki, Ethan and Vinny seemed controlled. Some of the best delivered lines occur at the end of the show's finale. The pure pain behind Rambo's screams make watching the scene feel almost inhumane. And the way that the dialogue goes from let me die within under 2 minutes really emphasises just how much his time at Showfall fucked with their head. The fact they went straight to begging for their death rather than their life really makes me question which situation fucked with them most. What's even more interesting is Rambo's intent behind this moment. Rambo stated, "I wanted to see if I could have a collective amount of people actually execute someone." He wanted us to feel that pressure of having to decide whether somebody should live or die. And we did. I seriously did not know what to do. Killing him felt so wrong, but leaving him alive felt even worse. There was no happy ending. Not only did we feel the pressure, Some of us even grieved this fictional death. Rambo even stated that they tricked themselves into believing they were actually gonna die, which is why the emotions seem so realistic. A quick zoom in on Rambo's face will break your heart. I'm starting to think Rambo's only intent with this project was to hurt his viewers. Something I want to get into are all the blink and you'll miss it moments. My personal favourite example of this can be seen around 37 minutes and 15 seconds into the show's finale. In what originally felt like the final scene, when Rambo walks through all the Showfall employees after pressing the button, an exit sign can be seen just above Rambo's head. It's pointing right, and Rambo can even be seen looking right, almost as if he knew he was supposed to go that way. However, our hero continues to walk on forward and the sign goes unnoticed. He was destined to either die for Showfall or relive these past few days over and over again for the rest of his life. Which, we'll get onto how long that would be later. This character is so incredibly sad. Thinking about all the things he can't remember, his parents, possible pets, friends, other family members, anything about his life beforehand, and the fact that nobody seems to be looking for him. I don't even want to talk about it. Another pretty cool one can be seen 14 minutes and 30 seconds into the finale. When Rambo is searching the offices for a code, he comes across Showfall's plans for day 1 and day 2. In the background you can see the whiteboard with the plans for day 3, the finale. He never notices it, but it's interesting to think how many things could have changed if he had of. One that absolutely baffled me was when in The Choice, Rambo stabs the Showfall employee and they bleed electrical wires. Yet earlier on, him and Charlie came across an employee bleeding actual blood. This could have been to show us that Showfall was still under control and perception was still being altered. But why one guy and not the other? The only theory I could find on this was that maybe the longer someone's under Showfall's control, the more the wires begin to consume them. Now this one's pretty obvious, but it's still worth mentioning as it didn't really mean anything to us until the end of the finale. When Rambo is sorting through the codes, you can see the box he would later die in the background. Was he setting up his own death? Probably. So that's something for you to think about. While rewatching The Mastermind of the Warehouse, I realised, excluding Frank, the cast die in the order they were seated in around the carousel. Starting with Nikki, even though we'd chosen to save her, moving to Vinny, then Ethan, and ending on Austin and Sneak. Not sure if this was actually planned, but judging by the rest of the show, I'd say it's very likely that it was. I don't know why though. During the scene when Rambo is trying to grasp the attention of the streamers, right before he finds Charlie, one particular streamer says something not many people picked up on. The second streamer Rambo tries to talk to was in the middle of a sentence, the sentence being,
So you want to cast Dominate Person at 8th level.
a dominate person spell! At the beginning of The Spirit of the Cabin, Rambo points at the camera, at us, and says,
It's a weird painting.
I mean, we know they couldn't see the cameras, but a painting? How the fuck did Showfall manage that one? I wonder what the painting was. On a similar topic, there's the "oh, so that's what that was" moments, and Genlos has one of the most complex ones I've ever seen. In Mastermind of the Warehouse, Rambo can be seen tearing into Charlie's abdomen, but nothing but slime and silly things like toy cars are coming out. Until suddenly, the camera distorts. Charlie is no longer making jokes, he's screaming in pain. Going off the theory that Rambo's perception of reality is being altered due to the mass being plugged into his occipital lobes, which are responsible for visual perception, this theory suddenly becomes horrific. Rambo can hear Charlie making jokes, nothing but slime and toys coming out from his abdomen, when in reality Charlie is screaming and begging for Rambo to stop, blood and guts gushing all over the table. All while Rambo just unknowingly rips into the poor guy. It's insane just how many things the slime being blood changes about part 1. Charlie's suit, the chest at the end of the bed, this scene of Sneak, the food Rambo made that Charlie ate, the slime dimension. What the fuck is the slime dimension? Thinking about this and running with the perception theory, let's talk about our skelly pal Frank. If slime is blood, there's no way Frank was just a little plastic skeleton. That is a whole ass rotting corpse being dragged around by Sneak and slapped up by Germa. Which is just lovely to think about. And judging by this behind the scenes image we got, it's safe to say Frank used to be a Showfall employee. And even after he died, they still continued to use his corpse. What the fuck? Generation Loss has so much space to theorise. A character that has so far had an immense amount of theories made about her is Nikki Niachu's character. The two most popular theories surrounding Nikki's character are that she's there as a red herring and that she could always see the cameras. Thought process leading to these theories stem from the carousel scene, where Nikki can be seen crying every time she's in the background, but once the camera is focused on her, she seems perfectly content, smiling away. Now, although this wasn't in the original writing of the show, and it was just something that Nikki thought she would include, it's become law, and I don't think that there's any change in that. In my personal opinion, I think Nikki was there to distract us in a sense, but I don't think she was necessarily meant to mislead us. I think she was just there to throw us off the tiniest bit. And she did. Plus, Nikki's character being so vividly upset made for such a great emotional response from the audience when she died. There's another support character I feel we should delve into, and that's Austin. Throughout all of Austin's screen time, he seemed on edge, afraid. He repeatedly called the puzzler sick.
You like it? You're sick. You like it? You're sick. Yeah, I know.
And was extremely freaked out when Rambo and Sneak didn't react to Ethan's death in the typical way.
Blood, you psychos! React to that! Look at that!
To me, this would suggest Austin could always see what was going on. But if that's the case, it just raises even more questions. Why were some characters always aware? And why was Rambo even chosen in the first place? The fact that Charlie grew up on the set, and that the puzzler claims to have been there for so long, and taking in the fact that Frank's dead permanently, there's got to be so many more cast members with harrowing backstories that we're just never going to know about. Speaking of the puzzler, who left all those flowers? Was it his real family or a fake Showfall family? On the topic of the puzzler, it's interesting to me that he was presented as the kingpin, but yet to Showfall he was still disposable. He seemed to think he was able to do what he wanted, claiming to have been there for so long. But when he goes off task, he's punished. He joined in with the rest of the cast during the fashion show, whatever that was, and right before that he also shot Nikki because she startled him. Showfall clearly did not appreciate this at all. Because as you're aware, the puzzler is no more. He did, however, have a "if you're listening to this, I'm dead" tape. It can also be seen on the whiteboard for the day too. This would suggest that he knew he was gonna die and that it was Showfall's plan. Yet he can be seen accidentally blowing himself up. Much to think about. I've yet to see any theories on Vinny's character, and I'm really looking forward to seeing some. Vinesauce never really looked scared, and it was kind of terrifying. The constant loop theory is my personal favourite theory. It makes so much sense, but it's so devastating and inhumane. People, myself included, believe that no matter whether Rambo lives or dies, he's destined to wake up on that couch and relive this time, over and over again. A constant loop of endless misery. My favourite piece of evidence on this theory is that Rambo wakes up on the sofa in the same position he would later die in. I feel it's also noteworthy to mention he was also tapping SOS with his hand during this scene. Something I picked up on, which honestly might be nothing, is that Sneak constantly seems so done with Rambo. He's constantly coming at Rambo for not doing things a certain way. He seems so fed up of him even though they've only just met. Almost as if he's used to this, Rambo's showing up and making these same mistakes over and over again. Like he's fed up of this constant cycle but unable to break free from it. Sound like anything? In the beginning of the first part, when our hero wakes up, he can be heard saying,
I wasn't supposed to be like that.
What I get from this line is that Rambo pleaded for his death, only to wake back up on that couch. This cabin is his purgatory. That or a really weird, repetitive dream. When Rambo is tied up in the electric chair during the intro to part 2, there's a moment where his body goes limp, and the mask turns off. To me, this indicates the electricity killed him, but he came back. A few of the characters, but more noticeably Charlie, are known to have infinite lives. In fact, Charlie even states, "I can die as many times as I want." This just shows that no matter how many times each main character dies, they come back and play the role over and over again. Rambo coming back from the dead just implies he's already a Showfall cast member. Maybe his character's plot is that they always get so close to escaping, but they never do. Or maybe Showfall were doing a bit bad and decided they wanted to torture him this episode. Possibly because people are losing interest in the show. I mean, Showfall doesn't seem to be doing too well. An abandoned mall and using repurposed goods doesn't scream multi-millionaire entertainment company to me. Now, this is probably nothing, but in one of the confessionals during part 1, Rambo says, "I cut out gingerbread men and then I turned them back into balls again, just so that they had purpose for a little bit of a second." Last part of that line really stuck out to me, because that's exactly how Showfall treat Rambo. He was made to believe he was going to escape, that he was going to be the reason for this whole fucked up organisation to finally come to an end. Only for the only person that he'd put trust in to let him down like that. Showfall wanted their audience to see the true human emotions, to see them hold a slither of hope just for it to all come crumbling down at their feet. This and the fact that every time his mask flashed was just Showfall putting old memories back in just show how messed up the people behind this company really are. That this poor 19-year-old kid so much for entertainment and money. There's a theory that Rambo is the only reason why Showfall is still going. This theory began when Hetch refers to the control room, the room Rambo would later die in, as the heart of the facility. When Rambo is tied up in the final shot, the wires all seem to connect to him and spread out around him on the wall, like roots of a tree or veins. Our hero also has wires going into his mouth and coming out of his wrists. Was Showfall literally using their life force to keep the show running? Has Rambo ever really left that spot on the wall? At the beginning of part 1, the TV is on, but only playing static. As soon as the TV turns off, Rambo wakes up. But as I mentioned earlier, he can be seen tapping SOS with his hand, insinuating he wasn't really asleep, or out of it in general. The actual Rambo was still in there, begging for help. But nobody came. Does Squiggles represent chat? 100%. He acts just like Rambo's Twitch chat. The same phrases, reacts the same way to things, gets excited when other CCs come on screen. But if Squiggles is chat, wouldn't that mean Hetch also represents chat? Hetch is shown to be the main villain, the reason for all Rambo's pain. He's just constantly telling him to keep going and don't resist. This could be inspired by Rambo's followers refusing to let go of the Minecraft YouTuber era, and just fans trying to control and dictate their creators' every move in general. I can't find much on this theory, but it does link to another, the theory that each character is a representation of how they are viewed online in real life. Nikki is shown as the nice one, Austin shown as the gay one, Ethan being the unemployed one could link to the era of Unas Arnas. Most people ran to Mark, leaving Ethan to rebuild his career in a sense. Although this theory does start to crumble when you see that Sneak's introduction on the carousel simply said, "The Taken." There's such a devastating example of the butterfly effect in the finale, when Rambo decides to stop and rescue Charlie. In the time it took to get Charlie to follow him, the Showfall employees managed to chain up the exit. If you don't believe in the constant loop theory, this is where our hero sealed his fate. He could have escaped, but he couldn't bear to leave Charlie. Not that it even mattered in the end. Yes, if Rambo had have left Charlie, Charlie would have been stuck playing these characters for the rest of his life, but he wouldn't have known any different, and he also wouldn't have had his whole life come crumbling down in front of him, just for him to die moments later. There's actually another moment similar to this that really pissed me off. When Rambo and Charlie are looking for weapons, Charlie picks up an axe, but Rambo insinuates that he won't be able to run with it. This could have been Showfall still in Rambo's head, but either way, when they come across the door with the planks on it later on, the axe could have really changed the whole story. The set of Gen Loss is definitely one of the coolest parts about it. About 95% of Generation Loss was filmed in a mall, with the exception of a couple shots taking place outside. Although it's filmed in this insane abandoned mall, you'd have no idea while watching the warehouse and cabin scenes. The cabin is the first location we see, and it's so cool. Rambo mentioned that each part of Generation 1 represents a different era of horror. The cabin represents old-timey horror, the type of horror films you'd call cheesy these days. The overall feel of the cabin is so unsettling. The lack of vibrance yet plenty of colour and the dim lighting create a lifeless and isolated setting. Each room in the cabin carries its own sense of dread, uneasiness, and a peculiar sense of tension. Some of the cupboards and appliances such as the microwave, fridge and bookcase had fake backs, making for some great moments during the kitchen scenes. such as food appearing right when Rambo needed it to, one of Charlie's goons scaring Rambo, and Rambo getting attacked by a shit ton of bugs. Something quite comedic I noticed about the cabin is that the attic and basement are on the same floor as the rest of the house, and can also be seen to have stairs that lead to nowhere. Production wise this makes sense, but it's really interesting that none of the characters ever questioned where those stairs went. The warehouse was the second location revealed, and it's such a complex set. Each room seems to link together, there's so many doors and entryways in general. This made for some cool theories surrounding Ethan's death. The general gist of the theory is that Rambo knew that door was going to kill Ethan. The warehouse contained 9 different rooms. The room Rambo was held captive in, the hospital room, the carousel, candy room, laser room, the closet, the toy room, hole in the wall, and the puzzler's supposed office space. Each room came with its own puzzle for the cast, and typically came with a death too. The amount of props used in Generation Loss is insane. So much thought was put into these sets. Not long before Ethan dies, Rambo grabs Ethan, points at the correct and safe way out, and says,
"It says to go there, but I feel like that's a trap."
A minute later, when the light turns back on, he places a hand on Ethan's shoulder and once again says,
"That must have not been the way."
He continues to stare at Ethan in every shot they're both visible in, and he looks absolutely terrifying while doing so. A really cool thing that many people picked up on, but I was weirdly late to, is the fact that Rambo can be seen tapping SOS with his left hand and stopping it with his right. I'd like to think this was him trying to warn Ethan, but I'm not actually too sure. Showfall were clearly trying to make Rambo responsible for Ethan's death, without having to make Rambo physically harm Ethan. It seems to be the pattern with everyone, except from Nikki. The set of Gen Loss may be cool, but what's even cooler are the incredibly satisfying shots made using it. I genuinely couldn't believe how many amazing shots there were, especially in the finale. The fact that so many were done live is so impressive. The camera crew did such a brilliant job. The way the show was filmed really helped bring the emotion out. It made everything feel so much more real. An obviously amazing one was our first look at the mall, but a far more engaging one in my opinion was the opening scene to the finale. A drone showing off the mall was such a cool way to show off the set and to make it clear just how lonely our hero was. As someone who struggles with derealization, Gen Loss really fucked with my head. That feeling of not knowing if something's real or fake, if not knowing if you're real or fake, that dreamlike foggy state of mind. As much as it messed with me, I'm really glad I decided to ignore Rambo's warning, because I love this show so much. There's a few scenes in the finale that really hit me. These scenes gave me a sense of relatability. Rambo seems so isolated, and everything seems so unreal, so unfamiliar and hazy. The wide shots with Rambo in the centre are the ones that got to me most. He just seems so alone. So there you have it. There's just a few of the things that in my personal opinion make Generation Loss the best piece of media the internet has seen in years. Going off the fact Rambo says we don't understand much about the Gen Loss world yet, I am so intrigued to see what further content we get in the future. Watching Generation Loss blow up and Rambo's community grow so much has been really interesting. Seeing a trans creator get so much incredible feedback on something that they clearly tried so hard on is just really nice to see. I'd love to hear your thoughts and theories on the show, so if you noticed something that I didn't, please let me know in the comments, because I would love to just sit and read a million more theories. I am so intrigued in the world of Gen Loss. Make sure you go show Rambo some love and help support the project. I think there's still merch available to buy, which is going to be used to fund further generations in the future, so if you want to see more, then you should go and do that, because money! Things are expensive! I've been Tayzer, and if you've enjoyed this video, please make sure to like and subscribe. You can also find me on other social media platforms that hopefully are on the screen right now. I'm gonna go touch some grass now, like literally, because the brain rot from the amount of Generation Loss I've consumed within the past 2 weeks is insane. I'll see you in the next one.